The issues are whether the not fully registered charge by the bin bank is valid during the wind up, and whether the distribution of assets of Anson Sdn Bhd prioritize the fixed charge by bin bank, the floating charge by Penaga, the fixed charge by the third creditor, SAM, or the preferred creditors, the company.
This one is registered debenture, a debt which is registered in the name of the holder in the company book. It can be transferred in the same manner as that of share. The second one is bearer debenture, a negotiable instrument, and its title therefore can be transferred only by delivering it to the transferee. The company does not register the name of the holder. The third one is charges. Section 2, subsection 1 stated that charges include a mortgage and any agreement to give or execute a charge or mortgage whether upon demand or otherwise. If the company fails to repay the loan which is secure against the company's asset, the lender has resources against the asset. The asset are sold and the proceeds used to settle the loan. Next one is fixed charge. Fixed charge is one that attached to a specific asset of the company. The company is prevented from dealing with the asset without the lender consent. Through the company winding up, a fixed charge debenture holder is placed the highest ranking in the class of creditors. The priority to subsequent claims is owned by the fixed charge debenture holder. The next one is floating charge. Floating charge is a charge that does not attach to any fixed asset until it is crystallized. Charge over its current asset. While the charge remaining uncrystallized, the company is free to deal with or to dispose of this asset in the normal course of business and to replace them by acquiring the same category of asset in the future. The consent of the lender is not necessary to deal with such asset. When crystallization takes place, it ceases to float and drop down to attach itself to the specific asset or categories of asset then owned by the company. So in the case of Illingworth versus Howardworth Lord Merchanton, stated that a specific charge, which is fixed charge, is one that fastened on a certain and definite property or property capable of being ascertained and defined. A floating charge, on the other hand, is ambulatory and shifting it in its nature, hovering over and so to speak floating with the property which it is intended to affect until some event occur and some act is done which causes it to settle and fasten on the subject of the charge within it which embarks. The next case is Re Yorkshire World Combat Association Limited, stated that a floating charge has been defined as having three characteristics. So the first one is if it is a charge on a class of asset of a company present or future. The second one is that class is one which, in the ordinary course of businesses of the company, will be changing from time to time. So the last one, if it is contemplated that until some future step is taken by or on behalf of those interested in the charge, the company may carry on its business in the usual way. So under section 352, subsection 1, a company must register a charge with the register of charge within 30 days from the creation. The detail of the charge required: the first one, when the charge was created; the second one, what asset are charges; the third one is fixed or floating charge; the fourth one is who is the charge; and the last one is what is the liability secured by the charge, whether there is any prohibition or restriction on the creation of the subsequent charge, and other terms and conditions in the charge instrument. The next one is under section 352, subsection 2, if the charge is not registered, the charge shall be void. Under section 39, any subsequent charges will be deemed to have a construction notice based on the case United Malayan Banking Corporation Berhad versus Aluminex Sdn Bhd. Aluminex had early given a floating charge to the UMBC. The floating charge contained a negative pledge clause stating the company will not create any other charge ranking equally or above it. Later, the company created a fixed charge in favor of another lender. The issue is whether the later fixed charge had priority over the early floating charge. The court held that the floating charge had priority because the later fixed charge holder had actual notice of the negative pledge clause. Secondly, when the floating charge is crystallized, this is when the floating charge is converted into a fixed charge. The floating charge must be registered and crystallized first before the new fixed charge is created. Other than that, when comparing priorities between floating charge, it will be based on the order of the registration. A priority floating charge takes precedence over a subsequent one, unless the term of the early charge expressly allows the creation of another charge with equal or superiority. Based on the case Re Benjamin Corp and Son Limited, the company had early created a floating charge over its asset and later granted a fixed charge to another creditor. The floating charge included a negative pledge clause stating that the company should not create any further charges with priority. The court held that the later fixed charge was valid and took priority over the early floating charge, even with a negative pledge, because the fixed charge had no notice of the restriction. A negative pledge clause does not bind third party unless they have actual or constructive notice of it. Refer to the section 392 subsection 1 stated that the following shall have priority over claims of the floating charge, which is the first one receivable for his remuneration and cost, the second one employee up to 4 months salary before the appointment of receivable or before the floating charge takes possession of the asset subject to a maximum of Rm 15,000. The third one is employee remuneration in lieu of leave. The fourth one is EPF and so 12 months before the appointment of receivable or before the floating charge takes possession of the asset. And the last one is floating charge, which only paid later.
In relation to BIMBank and the definition of fixed charge itself, BIMBank holds the highest ranking in class of creditors and BIMBank has the most priority in subsequent claimants. However, the fixed charge is not fully registered, which means that the charge is classified as unregistered debenture and unsecured creditors. There is priority law since the unsecured creditors fall below secured and preferred creditors in class of creditors. Anson Syndrome Berhad has a restriction in dealing with the charged asset as they needed BIMBank consent to deal with the charged asset.
As for Sam, why did he, a third creditor, get the priority? This is because Sam, who lent 1,500,000 to the company, has created a fixed charge and registered under section 342 subsection 1, making him a secured creditor. Thus, between fixed charges and floating charges, fixed charges will be given priority first. Despite the negative pledge clause in Bank Penaga's floating charge, such clauses do not invalidate subsequent fixed charges. Therefore, Sam is entitled to be the first priority.
Bank Penaga with a floating charge get the third priority. Why? Okay, first we compare it with workers, which is a preferred creditor. For the priorities between floating charge and preferred creditor, if a receiver is appointed or the company's property under a floating charge is taken over and the company is not being closed down yet, some important creditors get paid before the floating charge holder, even if the floating charge has already become fixed. We show the preferred creditor get the priority than the floating charge. Then we will compare it with Sam, the fixed charge. As comparing fixed charge with floating charge, the priority will be given to fixed charge, regardless of whether the floating charge with a negative pledge was registered earlier than the fixed charge. This is because the fixed charge had no notice of the restriction. This means Sam get the highest priority than the workers and Bank Penaga. So, as according to the law, Bank Penaga was ranked as the third priorities.
Why did BIMB Bank come last in the claimant priority? BIMB Bank is in a precarious position regarding this 200,000 ringgit loan. Despite having a fixed charge created in February 2020, the failure to fully register it means that its security is likely void against the liquidator and other creditors. If the company faces insolvency, BIMB Bank will essentially be an unsecured creditor, significantly reducing its chances of recovering the full amount of its loan, especially when compared to a validly registered secured creditor like Bank Penaga. Based on section 352 subsection 2, if the charge is not registered, the charge shall be void. Generally, for fixed charge on the same asset, the earliest one established has the highest claim. In the event of liquidation, a floating charge holder is considered a secured creditor and therefore gets paid before unsecured creditors. Nevertheless, a floating charge doesn't prevent the company from settling its ordinary debts with unsecured creditors as part of its normal business operation.
The company then received a court order to pay the sum of Rm 15,000 to the outstanding worker salaries. This can be classified as preferential debts, and it has been stated in section 392 subsection 1. The debt have priority over claims of the floating charge even if the floating charge has already become fixed. The company should pay it of the fixed charge holder, which is SAM, but before floating charge holder, bank penaga and unsecured creditor.
In conclusion, the fixed charge by BIM Bank is not valid during the wind-up of Anson Sdn Bhd due to its failure to be registered within the prescribed time under Section 352 subsection 2, making it void and leaving BIM Bank as an unsecured creditor. Therefore, the distribution of assets will prioritise in the following order, which is SAM as the holder of a registered fixed charge, followed by the company's employees as a preferred creditors under Section 392 subsection 1, then Bank Penaga with a registered floating charge, and lastly, BIM Bank who rank lowest as an unsecured creditor.